Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight at the university level. We are at the NCAA conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and my guest today is Michael Davis. He's the president at Fairmont State University. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
So I have 2 degrees from Syracuse. I have an undergraduate degree and a master's degree, and then I have my PhD from the University of Georgia.
Wow, fantastic.
All 3 degrees are in communication studies.
So let's go back in time before we get started what you're doing. In high school, when did it all start for you thinking about going to college? Was it freshman year of high school or senior year? When did it all start?
So I'm a first-generation college student, but my mother worked at Yale University as a computer programmer and then rose through the ranks. So I think it was always expected I would go to college, but I didn't know what that meant. Right, so I applied to colleges because I got a brochure in the mail, or I saw the teams playing on TV. So I applied to a bunch of places, but I don't know why I was choosing those places. I didn't have any idea what it would mean to go to college. I didn't have any idea how I'd pay for it. All of those kind of things. But I always knew I would go to college. But after that, I mean, it was a concept. It wasn't, reality until I got on the college campus for the first time. And then I struggled my first semester because of that.
So that was my next question, is when you got to college, what was it like?
So I didn't struggle with the academic pieces. I struggled with everything else because it seemed like I was surrounded by people who knew a bunch of rules that I didn't know. I didn't know the FAFSA existed until my junior year of college.
Wow.
Right, so I was a Pell-eligible first-generation college student who didn't get Pell until my junior year because nobody ever told me it existed.
Wow.
Right, so it's that kind of thing that we're constantly trying to navigate as first-generation college students. Unwritten rules that some people know and some people don't.
Sure. So now, how does one go from graduating college to becoming the president at Fairmont State University?
So I was a mediocre undergraduate student, but I wanted to go to law school. So I went on to get my master's degree because I could be a debate coach and get my master's degree paid for. And then I really liked coaching and teaching. So I did that for 25 years. I was a faculty member, debate coach for 25 years. And then I shifted into administration, but I was chief of staff at James Madison University, and I still felt like I was a coach. Right? I was helping other people reach their goals as opposed to having a bunch of goals myself. And the natural progression for me was then to become a president because I could do that sort of on a supercharged level.
Yeah. So you have to get your doctorate to become a president?
You don't have to. I mean, there's different paths. I took a more non-traditional path. A lot of presidents come from they're a provost and then they become a president. I was a chief of staff, but I was chief of staff during a pandemic. So I dealt with lots of different pieces that really prepared me to be a university president.
So now what's involved in being a president of a university?
Every day is different. And it's interesting. I'm here at the NCAA conference. 2 days ago, I was at a West Virginia governor's inauguration. On Saturday, I'll host board members at my house before our basketball game. So it's always something different, and you're constantly juggling all those different pieces, which is actually why Chief of Staff prepared me really well for the role I'm in now, because I had to manage all of these different things at a 22,000 person university. So doing them at a 3,000 person university, I'm really ready for those challenges as they come forward.
So now, when you're at Fairmont State, give a sense of what Fairmont State University is. Where is it located?
Sure. So we're north central West Virginia. So we're about an hour and a half south of Pittsburgh, about a half hour south of Morgantown. We're actually the third largest university in the state at about 3,000 students. WVU and Marshall are obviously much larger than us, but we serve the highest percentage of West Virginia students. About half of our students are first-generation college students. About half of our students are Pell-eligible students. So, like most regional universities, we're really serving the state's population more so than a lot of the flagships do, which are recruiting a lot of out-of-state students. So we're really making sure we serve West Virginians. But it's a really great place.
And what's the atmosphere there? What is it like?
So it's interesting. When I took over, I heard a lot of people say, well, we're a suitcase campus. Students go home on the weekends. And I started to ask our students, especially coming out of COVID, I said, what do you want to see? And our students said, well, we want events. And I went to our staff and they said, well, students don't show up for events. I was like, something's got to give. So we started offering events, and when we did, students showed up. So I think you're starting to see we're far enough out from the pandemic now that students want to be re-engaged. So we're starting to revitalize the campus. We're offering more events on nights and the weekends, and we're really starting to see that. We've got a huge uptick in number of returning students who want to live on campus because there's things happening. So we're really excited about that.
Now, when you're at the university, what type of things does the president have to do? Is it mostly just fundraising?
No, I think fundraising and friend-raising. I think that, especially regional publics that are in rural areas, which we are, the university is central to the town's success and vice versa. So a lot of it is community relations. So I say yes to, I'm here today because I say yes to every opportunity, right? So I've talked to the Knights of Columbus. I've talked to, Boy Scout troops. I talk to everybody because I think the university has to be central to the town. It can't just be, well, we're a university up on the hill and we do our own thing. We've got to be more integrated. So I'm running 100 miles an hour all the time because we're starting to rebuild relationships that have been ignored for years. So we're rebuilding that, and you can really feel the community getting excited about that and the campus getting excited about re-engaging that community.
So some of your work is meetings with community leaders?
Yep, a lot of community leaders. So I'm on the chamber board, I'm on the United Way board, I'm in the local morning Rotary, so I'm doing all of these different pieces. I think I'm on 11 or 12 different boards, and I think it's a really important part of my job.
And now majors at the school. What's the school known
So we
for?
started as a teacher's college, so education's really big, nursing is really big, which is pretty typical of a regional public, but then we also have a national security program, so we place a lot of our students with the FBI. And there's an FBI center just south of Fairmont. We have a surveying program. So we're training the next generation of surveyors. We have an aviation program, one of 2 in the state. And we graduate more pilots than anybody else in the area. So we've got those programs. We have the only accredited architecture program in the state of West Virginia, and we just added a master's program to that. And then we're looking at some new programs too. One of the things I think that's a strength of a university our size is we can be more flexible than some of the big places, right? If a big place wants to add a program, they might need 8 or 9 faculty members to serve the number of students they need to do it to scale, where we can add 1 or 2. So we're looking at some of these new programs, and we're looking at building a more flexible model where we lay a really nice foundation, but then the inputs can change as needs of the state or the region change.
Now, extracurricular activities at the school, is it just sports or there's other things?
No, so we've got our theater program, we've got our band is being revitalized, our marching band, we've got an orchestra, we've got choir, we've got those pieces, and then our students do a lot of academic presentations as well. One of the things we're really competitive nationally is a concrete canoe. So our engineers can create these canoes made out of concrete that float, and they race them, and we finish in the top 5 every single year, and we're competing against, there's no divisions in concrete canoe, so we're competing against, Virginia Tech, MIT, these schools, that are on the national radar, and we're putting ourselves right up against them.
Wow,
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. Now, how about sports? What type of sports are at the school?
So we've got most of the traditional sports. We've got 17 different sports. At Fairmont State, we've got football, we've got basketball, softball, baseball, a lot of those sports. The one sport we have that's unique is we have acrobatics and tumbling, which has about 40 women compete. It's sort of an outgrowth of a combination of gymnastics and cheerleading, but with a bunch of power moves too. So these are women who are lifting women over their heads with one arm and holding them up in the air, and it's really amazing. And the final event, there's 40 women out on the basketball court at the same time doing it. So it's an amazing event.
And they have competitions?
They have competitions, and so there's no divisions yet because it's an emerging sport. So last year we hosted the national tournament. We were the 8th seed, so we made it in, and then we competed against Baylor, who's won it year over year in the first round, and it was an amazing experience.
Now, how many schools have that?
I think there's 38. I think it's somewhere 38 to 50 or somewhere in there.
Really?
Yeah, and most of them are at the Division II level. So there's a handful at Division I, a handful at Division III, and then there's 29 or so at the Division II level. And we're one of the founding members. We're one of the people who originated the sport. It's the only NCAA sport that was created by women for women. So when you look at the sidelines, you don't see, you see like women's basketball, there'll be a male coach. You don't see any of that in acrobatics and tumbling because it's a new sport that was created by women for women.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. Now, colleges are expensive these days.
They are. We're not.
Well, that was my question, is financing.
Yeah.
What type of financing does the school have?
Yeah.
Do they give away things?
I think I pulled out all my hair because the national news media talks about these $400,000 degrees, $400,000 degrees. You can come to Fairmont State for the rest of your life for $400,000. The typical in-state tuition is about $8,500, and then we just lowered our out-of-state tuition. We used to have 3 rates. We used to have an in-state, a metro rate, and an out-of-state rate. We lowered every out-of-state student, including international students, down to our metro rate. So now an out-of-state student pays $13,000 and change for tuition. And then we have academic scholarships. If you have above a 3.0, you have a guaranteed academic scholarship to Fairmont State from anywhere from $500 to, if you're a high-achieving student, 3.9 or higher, in-state you get $3,000, and out-of-state you get $4,500. Wow. So a student from New Jersey who wants to come to Fairmont State is paying about $9,000 a year in tuition. And then, if they get Pell or whatever other aid, that would come off of that too.
Right. And then
it makes us less expensive than every school in New Jersey and a bunch of schools all over the country. We're cheaper than 175 schools east of the Mississippi for out-of-state students. And
now room and board.
Room and board is we have a flexible rate depending on which residence hall you live in. So if you are struggling financially and want to live in one of our older residence halls, it's a couple $1,000s a semester for room and board. So you can really get through Fairmont State with minimal debt, and that's especially true for our in-state students. Our in-state students are paying very little to come to Fairmont State. The state of West Virginia has actually been very generous in supporting these students with a Promise Scholarship and West Virginia grant that often brings their tuition down significantly. If you're a student who's really in need in West Virginia, you're not paying anything except for your room and board to come to Fairmont State.
Wow. And now you talked a lot about the Pell Grants. Well, what other loans are available? Just the Pell Grant? Or
there's traditional Stafford loans and those sort of things. I don't know if that's what they're still called. That's what they were called when I was in college. There's traditional loan programs. But we have one of the things we established last year that we really beefed up was a scholarship portal. So now students, typically students would have to apply for 6 different scholarships at the same school. Now you apply once, and it plugs you into all the scholarships you're eligible for.
Really?
We need to make it easier for students to pay for college. And we were actually finding we weren't even giving away all our money because students would apply for this scholarship, but not this one over here that they were eligible for. Now they apply, and we say, you're plugged into this one, you're plugged into that one.
Do all universities do that?
No.
Or you just...
Yeah. And I think, one of the advantages of a university our size is we can really be more responsive to students' needs than a lot of the big places are. The big places are mechanized.
Sure.
We can really care for students on an individual basis like that.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the families and the students that are watching this? What advice do you want to give them?
I think make sure you pick a place that's a good fit. I laugh all the time because you're asking an 18-year-old to decide a place that's going to work for them. So a lot of it's feel, right? So when you're on a college campus, what feels right to you? And I think a lot of times people pick the big names, right? We hear it all the time. Oh, well, I applied to these big schools. But it's easy to get lost at those big places. I got really lucky going to Syracuse with 16,000 students that I found the debate team. If I hadn't found the debate team, there's zero chance I would have graduated, right? At a place like Fairmont State, that's baked into our DNA. We make sure you find your people. We make sure you graduate, and we can walk you through it. I came from a university that was 22,000 people. I would go to graduation ceremonies where we graduated 4,000 students, and I would know a handful of them. We have 400 students who walk across graduation at Fairmont State, and I know a quarter of them. I know 100 students who are walking across stage, and I've only been there for a year and a half. So I think you need to find a university that's going to serve your individual needs, and make sure you don't pick a place that's too big or too small. Some people need to be at the big places, so pick a place that fits who you are.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.